We're going to install Debian 12, and here I have Ventoy, which allows you to hopefully not have any issues with backdoors, but it allows you to just go ahead and put a bunch of ISOs on a thumb drive and not have to burn one every time. And I can have a bunch of different operating systems. Okay. So I'm going to click Debian 12 because that's what I have, and we're going to do the graphical install, but you can also do the regular install as well. I have no idea what advanced options are. I bet you there's probably a dark contrast menu. That's nice. Speech synthesis. So there's accessibility, which is pretty handy, but we're going to be concerned with the graphical install. If you were installing it from the command line with no traditional display, like, I don't know, I can't really think of a good example of that. Maybe if you're SSHing into a server, installing that way, that's the sort of thing that will allow you to do that. But we're going to do graphical install because we're going to be setting this up as a workstation, not as a server. So hit enter, and then wait for the thing to do its thing. It's going to start up the graphical installer. And here you can select your language, so you can choose the language to be used for the installation process. The language will also be the default language for the installed system. The selected location will be used to set your time zone and also, for example, to help select the system locale. Normally, this should be the country where you live. This is a short list of locations based on your language you've selected. Choose other if your location is not listed. So this is handy. So I'm going to choose United States because that's where I am right now. But if I was somewhere else like Thailand, I might choose Thailand so my time zone will line up correctly, but I still need it to be in English. So we're choosing that, and the keyboard is going to be American English because I don't have any other keyboard, but there are a bunch of different keyboard configurations set up for your particular type of keyboard. So that is also handy. So once you've done that, it's going to detect and mount the installation media. It's going to detect the network hardware. I have an Ethernet cable plugged in, so we don't have to worry about that. It says that some of your hardware needs non-free firmware files to operate. The firmware can be loaded by removable media such as USB or floppy disk. The missing firmware files are for the auth 10K cal PCI 000 :01:00.0.bin. And if you have the media available, you can insert it now. So I guess I could do that, but I won't. And that is because I have some weird Lenovo x86 board. So I'm going to click no on that because that I actually haven't figured out how to get that to work. But you can always deal with that later, and it's a lot easier. You could just I might be able to just get this with the non-free update, and I'll probably just install the next time I do the update once I get into the system. Don't worry about that. There we go. Now it's actually configuring the network Ethernet, like I said. You can choose wireless here. I'm going to choose my Ethernet connection. Actually, it might not be working. So I guess we'll find out. That'll be hilarious if this thing just suddenly isn't working. Because like last time I checked it, it was. Every time I try to do this thing, something goes wrong. So I think it's working. So this probably is a good sign, because it's going to try to update things. So now you want to configure the network. Please enter the host name for your system. The host name is a single word that identifies your system to the network. If you don't know what the host name should be, consult your network administrator. If you're setting up your own home network, you can make something up there. Host name. I usually give it a fun name, but I'm just going to keep it default, and we're going to go ahead and leave it as Debian. And so the Debian name is part of your internet address to the right of your host name. It is often something that ends in .com, .net, .edu, or .org. If you are setting up a home network, you can make up something, but make sure you use the same domain for all your computers. You can leave this blank because we're not using it as a server. We're using it as a, we're using it as a workstation. But normally, this comes with, I think, Apache installed or some sort of web server. So it's pretty easy to set these up as a web server. So you could set that up if you wanted to. Now we're going to go ahead and see what we got here. We got set up users and passwords. You need to set up a password for root, the system administrative account. A malicious or unqualified user with root access can have disastrous results. So you should take care to choose a root password that is not easy to guess. It should not be a word found in the dictionaries or a word that could easily be associated with you. A good password will contain a mixture of letter, numbers, and punctuations, and should be changed at regular intervals. The root user should not have an empty password. If you leave this empty, the root account will be disabled, and your system's initial user account will be given power to become root with the sudo command. You hear what that says? That's the important part. If you choose to do a root password here, oh my God, that flashing is driving me crazy. If you choose to do a root password here, and then you create a regular user, they won't be root, and then you have to figure out how to make them a sudoer. But if you leave this blank, your regular user that you set up in the next step will just be a root user. You don't have to do anything. So it's kind of better, but it really depends on what you want to do. If you're going to share this system with family members, maybe you want to have a root password here and then make other users that aren't root, So, but for my preferences and for the purposes of this demo, we're just going to click continue and leave it blank. And so now we need to create a user account that we created for you to use instead of the root account for non-administrative activities. Well, that's not true because I think we can set them up as a root person. Please enter the real name of this user. This information will be used, for instance, as default origin for emails sent by this user, as well as any program which displays user's real name. Full name is a reasonable choice. See how it's all uppercase there? That doesn't matter because it's going to change my name to lowercase in the next step. I'm going to click continue. There we go. Now it's lowercase. Select a username for the new account. The first name being a reasonable choice. The username should start with a lowercase letter, which can be followed by a combination of numbers and more lowercase letters. So we're just going to keep that default. And then a good password will contain a mixture of letters, numbers, punctuation, and should be changed at regular intervals, which we already knew from the previous reading. Choose a password for the new user. So we're going to choose password. Okay, once you've entered in your secure password, make sure to use letters and numbers. Click continue. And now we want to configure the clock. I don't know why it's asking me again. It already knows. Oh yeah, well it already knows I'm here, but it has to ask me again. So it's just kind of redundant. The desired time zone is not listed. Then please go back to this step and choose language and select country. That uses the desired time zone. The country where you live or you're located. Flashing is driving me crazy. And this is going to be Pacific. And so here's some choices for partition disks. The installer can guide you through the partitioning of a disk using different standard schemes, or if you prefer, you can do it manually. With guided partitioning, you will still have a chance to later review, customize the results. If you choose the guided partitioning for the entire disk, you will next be asked which disk should be used. Partitioning method. So you can do a different partition for home, one for var, one for your boot, stuff like that. It's probably easiest just to use the entire thing. And I also want to encrypt it. Even if you want to encrypt it, you can still do, you can encrypt the entire disk, but still do partitions. So it's still possible. But if you do the automatic guided partitions, don't do it unless you know what you're doing. Maybe you're smarter than me, but I I have it set up on this other system with a 10 gigabyte var partition, and now it's already full just by having OBS as a snap on there, and it installed into that partition, and it's just using up all my space. So I'm already using up more than 10 gigs just by having a couple snaps, and I'm not even recording video to that. It's probably just like caching something in there. Who knows? So what we're going to do is we're going to make it easier on ourselves. We're going to use the entire disk, and we're going to encrypt it, because it's encrypting is a really good idea for security. You have a laptop, it's going to be your workstation, you encrypt it, and then you take that around with you and somebody steals it from you. Well, now they can't access your personal data because it's encrypted, and hopefully you have a good, strong encryption password. And they shouldn't be able to hack it. The regular Joe Blow probably won't hack it. They'll probably just want to use the drive, and hopefully best case scenario is they format it and they just put another operating system on there, which basically override all your data. So hopefully that will be fine, or they're smart enough to crack it, and they could use if your password is common, they could probably just run it through something with the common passwords that they got from the dark web. So basically I had a laptop stolen, and with my work drive and my personal drive, both were encrypted. So hopefully, my password's not that good, but hopefully they just decided to format it. Once you install Windows, the nice thing about Windows is if somebody just installs Windows on it instead of Linux, and Windows tries to mount that drive, oh, we need to format this drive. It'll ask you to format it, and, you might just click it and format it. So hopefully, even if somebody installed Windows and they had extra drives, hopefully they accidentally formatted the drives, so that way there's no chance of them ever getting my data. But that means my data drives are out there somewhere, which bothers me. So always encrypt, guys, because you never know who's going to have your hard drives next. I'm starting to do this with flash drives too, all kinds of things. Anything you can encrypt, just go ahead and do it. So we're going to click continue, and for the demo I have a really small drive. It's actually smaller than my USB drive because this is going to be faster. Debian takes a really long time to encrypt. It has to write over each byte of space to make sure that it's a proper encryption. So it's actually pretty secure compared to the other methods I've used. I don't think Ubuntu goes through this much trouble to make your encrypted drive that's secure. I think it just encrypts it but does not write the data. It gives you an option to not do it, but this one does not give you an option, so it's just going to do what it's going to do. And so we want to go to the next step here, selecting the partition, and we're going to, like I talked about before, all files in one partition. We're not going to do the home in one partition, or this is the option down here, home, var, temp in different partitions. So you could do that if you're smarter than me, know how to separate things and how much space you're going to need. But we're not going to do that for this demo. So click continue, and then before the logical volume manager can be configured, the current partitioning scheme has to be written to the disk. These changes cannot be undone. After the logical volume manager is configured, no additional changes to the partitioning scheme of the disk contained physical volumes are allowed during the installation. Please decide if you are satisfied with the current partitioning scheme before continuing. The partition tables of the following devices will be changed. SCS, whatever, this is all going to get changed. I don't know why there's two. There's an SDA, an SDB, maybe there's a boot partition, and maybe there's like the regular home. Everything goes on one drive. Write these changes to the disk configuration. Configured for LVM, you have to click yes down here to continue, and then click the continue button. There we go. And now it's going to erase the data on the drive. So this should be faster for me, but if you have, a half terabyte drive or a whole terabyte drive, this might take a while. So, strap yourselves in. It's going to take a really long time if you do this, but it's worth it because it's more secure if you do it this way. Not that you had a choice with Debian, but this is usually the best way to make sure that your drive can't be cracked as easily as if you use up everything. So it's going to write, all zeros to the drive in my encrypted partition, and then we'll be good to go. So we're just going to wait for this thing to do its thing. Okay, so now you want to type in your password. Make sure to choose a strength of encryption depends strongly on the passphrase. You should take care to choose a passphrase that is not easy to guess. It should be a word. It should not be a word or a sentence found in the dictionaries or a phrase that could easily be associated with you. A good passphrase will contain a mixture of letters, numbers, punctuation. Passphrases are recommended to have the length of 20 or more characters, but we're not going to follow that because we're doing a tutorial and we're lazy. So we're going to put in password. Okay, then click continue. And now it's going to do something else at this stage. It'll tell us what it's doing, I'm sure. Ooh, it's setting up the partitions. Very good. There we go. And you want to use the whole volume group for guided partitioning or a part of it. If you use only part of it, or if you want to use more disk later, of course remember we're not doing that, then you will be able to grow logical volumes later using the LVM tools, which I don't know how to use. So using a smaller part of the volume group or installation at the installation time may offer more flexibility. The minimum size of the selected partition recipe is 1.9 gigabytes or 6%. Please note that the packages you choose to install may require more space than this. The maximum available size is 30.9 gigabytes. Hint: max can be used as a shortcut to specify the maximum size or enter the percentage, e.g. 20%, to use that percentage, the maximum size. I just learned something, actually. I didn't know that, because I didn't read that last time. So you can put max there, or you can put percent. But we know that my drive is small, and something, it's actually a 32 gigabyte drive, so it's actually not really 32 gigabytes. And then it's probably using 500 megabytes or something like that for the boot partition. So we're just gonna keep it default. So this already is the max, and it's a small ass drive. So we're good to go. So we're just gonna click continue here, and it's going to set up the partitioner. Okay, and then we're gonna click continue because this should be using the everything var home lib should all go in the same spot. So we're good. So we're gonna click continue, because that's the easiest thing you can do. And then we get to the next section here. If you continue, the changes listed below will be written to the disks. Otherwise, you'll be able to make further changes manually. Warning: this will destroy all data and any partitions you ever moved, as well as the partitions that are going to be formatted. I'm pretty sure we already deleted the entire drive, so I don't know why it's asking us this again. But if we had done something, I guess, in this install process, it would wipe out that. So we're just going to click yes and click continue. Configure the package manager. The goal is to find a mirror of the Debian archive that is close to you on the network. Be aware that nearby countries, or even given your own, may not be the best choice. Debian archive mirror country. What does that even mean? You could probably look into this more, and there is ways to change this later on, but this wizard really helps. For me, I'm going to keep it on United States, so I'm going to hit the enter button. Configure the package manager. Please select a Debian archive mirror. You should use a mirror in your country or region. If you do not know which mirror is the best, which has the best internet connection for you, usually debian.debian.org is a good choice. Okay, the system may be anonymously supplying the distribution developers with statistics about the most used packages on this system. This information influences decisions such as which packages should go on the first distribution CD. If you choose to participate, the automatic submission script will run once a week, sending statistics to the distribution developers. The collected stats can be viewed on https://popcon.debian.org. This choice can be later modified by running dpkg-reconfigure popularity contest. Oh, nice. That's what popcorn means? I thought it meant popcorn. Participate in the package usage survey. I'm going to click no. Well, it's just like off by default, which is nice. So we're not going to do that. But if you wanted to click yes, you know, maybe some of the software will come in Debian next time. You know, so I don't have to worry about trying to install it manually. So I'm going to click continue. Select and install software. So here we go to the next section where we get to choose our, GUI. So at this moment, only the core system is installed. To tune the system to your needs, you can choose to install one of the more of the predefined collections of software. Choose the software to install. Debian desktop environment, GNOME, which I'm pretty familiar with. I want KDE Plasma because I want to try that out. You can try all these other things. I have no idea what they are. This is where you can install your web server. You can install SSH if you wanted to use it as a server, but it's supposed to be a workstation, but we might as well install some of these things. But let's say you are setting up a server, you can just have all these packages be there. And you can turn off all the display stuff if you really wanted to just kind of save some time. So then you could just have a server just by doing that. But we're gonna have a lot of fun here, so we're gonna try to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But you could have just left it defaults. And then we're gonna click continue. Then eventually you get to this step here. Configure your GDM3. Okay? A display manager is a program that provides graphical login capabilities for the X Windows system. Only the display manager can manage a given X server, but multiple display manager packages are installed. Please select which display manager should be run by default. Multiple display managers can run simultaneously if they are configured to manage different servers. To achieve this, configure the display managers accordingly. Each of their init scripts in etc init.d and disabled by checking a default display manager. So we got GDM3 by default. That's probably for X server. And then I have no idea what this is. SDDM. So maybe that has something to do with Wayland. So that might be important to know, but we're going to stick with this because it's probably going to make GNOME work. So let's go to continue. Okay, so now that the installation is complete, so it's time to boot to your new system. Make sure you remove the installation media so that you can boot into the new system rather than restarting the installation. Please choose continue to reboot. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug the boot media, which is totally allowed, and then I'm going to click continue. So it should boot up. This is what it looks like when it restarts. Super fancy. There we go. And this will pop up pretty much every time. I don't know how to make it go away. There's probably a way to go into grub and turn it off. But just hit enter right there. And then the next thing, it should ask us for our password. It's not very fancy. It just shows up at the top left there. So we're going to enter password. This is decrypting the disk before we can boot to it. So this is that LVM disk encryption thing. So we're going to hit enter right here. Then it should boot up into Debian for me. Show all the standard Linux booting stuff that you would normally expect. Cool. There it is. There's my user. My name is upper and lowercase. That's nice. I'm going to go ahead and put in the password for our, our local user, which is different than the encryption password, except for I use the same password, but they're actually two different ones. And so then you will see this screen when you first start up. And so then, we're going to have this welcome screen pop up. So we'll just click next here. It's going to reconfirm all of our keyboard and locale settings, which are basically fine. We can choose a Wi-Fi network, but we're going to skip. And then we can turn on location services. I just turn it off for better or for worse. And then you can set up your Google account, whatever the hell Nextcloud is, and your Microsoft account. We're going to skip that. There you go. All done. Debian GNU Linux is ready to be used. We hope that you'll love it. Start using Debian GNU Linux. There you go. So that's basically about it. You have all your GNOME set up. There's your activities. You can hit activities with the Windows key and you can type in settings up here. And you can go to the settings that way. Or you can come over here and go to the gear icon by clicking up here. And another thing I like to do is set it to dark mode. That's up to you, but that's actually built into the new version of GNOME, which is nice. And this computer is so slow. And then I just click dark, just like that. There you go. That's all you got to do, and you're set.